So if you don't want your image or voice on the recording, you can stay muted and leave your video off. But I think we're all getting probably more and more used to being on these kind of Zoom meetings. So as we're just waiting for everybody there, I'm going to do a short PowerPoint just to run through some ideas, but then I'm really more interested in opening it up to questions. But as we're just giving people a few more minutes to find the right email and the right link, anybody want to say anything? Anybody want to say hello? Anybody want to say what they're coming in for? Hello, Miss Jorney. Dr. Jorney.
Dr. Jorney, I'm here to see you and to hear you speak and to see what you have to share. Something that helps me to get through this difficult time.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice to have Rhode Island represented.
Hi, I'm Adam Schechter. I'm here to connect, have social contact with other people and analysts and hear people's ideas, exchange ideas.
Great, Adam, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Miss Psya.D.
Hi, Miss Psya.D.
I would love to hear new ideas about how to deal with this isolation and the whole stressful situation. I'm just going to mute and close my video because I'm going to have my dinner.
Okay, no problem. It's good self-care.
Hi, I'm Janet Castellini. I came because I wanted to hear psychoanalysts talk about the situation. I've been to, like 10 million things online, social workers and therapists and blah, 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 but I really am missing something more substantial. So.
Okay, that is a tall order, but I will do my best to try to provide some psychoanalytic ideas.
I'm Eva Silver from New Jersey, and just glad to connect with people in Boston again. Hello, Gabriel. Nice to see you.
Hi, Eva.
And I'm running groups we have a sister school in New Jersey, a sister school to BGSP, ACAP, and I'm running groups for the community to help them get through this as well. And I'm very interested in all the ideas that come up and how you're doing things and just whatever ideas I can have.
Yeah, great.
About to help people through this incredibly trying time.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this. And I'm also going to turn my video off because I'm starving and I'm going to eat my dinner.
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, glad to be here though.
So for anybody who hasn't heard, we're just going to give one more minute and then I'm going to do a quick PowerPoint. But some people who want to can, if they want to say what brings them here or what they're hoping to get out of today, just so I have in the back of my mind what people might want to know. And everybody's microphone as you enter is muted, so you have to unmute if you want us to hear you. All right, so let me run through my PowerPoint. This I can make this available to anybody who wants it. Most of it is just stuff I've been collecting over the past 2 months, and I'll kind of add some of my own thoughts as we go along. And then later on after this, and again, this won't be very long, I'll just open it up to questions and other ideas that people have. And we'll kind of take it from there. So, all right. So this I decided to title this Psychoanalytic First Aid, Sheltering in Place, and really give us a chance to think about how this might be different than other situations. Let's get me on the right slide here. So I think I'm going to talk about stressors, right? Ways of thinking about stressors for yourself. We're going to try to get you starting to think about how to make some kind of plans to deal with your physical and psychic stress. I'm going to give you 3 terms that you may or may not have heard before. The first one's eustress, the second one is Zoom Gloom, the third one is dissonance. And basically with the dissonance idea, I'm going to help us understand a little bit about the experience that I've heard other people have. I know myself has also experienced, but that sometimes we can simultaneously have too much and not enough time and social contact, right? That we say to ourselves, oh, we've got all this time, I should be able to do all the house projects and house repairs, plus all my work, plus all this enjoyable reading, maybe pick up yoga, which I've never done before. And yet we find ourselves 2 months into this and we've done nothing. In fact, we've done less than we were doing when we had a full work schedule and we're dealing with traffic. So all that's going to kind of fall under the dissonance idea. I'm going to start us just to think about ways in which our body speaks to us, ways in which we're getting communication from physical states. And specifically, how do you know when you have a lot of stress? I'd love to come back to that question. I'm going to give you a list that is by all means not an exhaustive list. And every time I've done this talk, and I've done it a few times so far, you know, people always come up with things that I hadn't thought about. But there's lots of places in your body where you can experience stress, ways and times when you know, like, okay, I must be stressed out. Some obvious ones for people, you have an upset stomach, right? You just have worried yourself sick. You've gotten so stressed out, you know, you can't eat. But also sometimes overeating is a sign of stress and not feeling well because you've eaten too much. Some people feel it in their neck. Some people feel eye strain or get headaches. Some people bite their fingernails. Some people actually get skin irritations when they're stressed out. So they get some kind of rash. So the skin is speaking. To put a plug in for the psychoanalytic idea there, you know, we have this thought that the ego is really important to helping us manage and get through conflicts and tensions through the day. It's the ways in which we have learned to deal with whatever kind of problems and conflicts we run into. And the skin really for the infant is the first ego. The skin is what's going to be the barrier between self and others. And so the skin is something that a lot of people feel stress in, and it starts speaking to you that it says, hey, you've got some stress. If you're not aware of it, think about it. Look, here's a rash. Let me show you. So think about ways in which your body is speaking to you. And at the end, I'll ask for some other ideas about that. If our body's speaking to us, then we have to have a way of answering it, right? How do we answer what our body may be communicating to us? And I'm going to start with the physical. It's not always where I start from, but in this particular instance, I find it's really, our bodies are responding to a change. And so looking at the physical or being aware of the physical might come first. And so just a couple of real good ideas about how to deal with physical stress. Having a regular schedule. It's so easy to start sleeping later. It's so easy to be eating meals that, you know, whenever through the course of the day. But if you have a time that you're getting up and a time that you're going to bed that's consistent, that's a good starting point. If you have a regular time when you're going to have your meals, that's really important. Avoid drinking in excess, alcohol we're talking about here. That actually will put more stress on the system. There is a way in which it is a social inhibitor. It helps us relax a little bit, but in any kind of excess, it really does put a strain on the body that might already be strained. So be careful of that and do drink enough water. Make sure that you're keeping yourself hydrated. And then the third item that I have there is about the importance of exercising and moving. So just kind of keep in mind that even if you're using a pedometer and you're used to getting X number of steps and you've been making sure you get X number of steps because you're going for longer walks or whatnot, realize it's a different kind of exercise than what you might have been doing before. Maybe in a given day, you got somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 steps. Now you're trying to cram them all in an hour and a half. Or in maybe a walk in the morning and in the evening, and realize the body is going to be responding to the fact that you're not moving around as much as you might have throughout the course of the day. So getting up and moving, I think, is another really good just way to deal with some physical stress. We have to also consider the source of stress. And when I get to that, I get to three different things. One of which is we need to know that we all have a certain amount of good stress, or what's called eustress. And it's what helps keep us going. You know, I teach at both the Boston Graduate School of Psychoanalysis as well as at Northeastern University. And, you know, my students certainly at Northeastern would not be studying if they did not know that a test was coming up. A little bit of stress knowing that there's a grade coming. All of a sudden, they want to know, what were the chapters that I was supposed to be studying? Oh, what homework assignments were due? When is the test? That's a little bit of good stress because it's going to make sure that people do what it is that they're supposed to be doing. So I like to put in a nod that a little bit of stress, a little bit of that good or eustress is important. But then there's also the harmful stress. There's the stress where it's too much. We don't have really good ways of handling it anymore. That's when we start getting into physical complaints. That's also when we start getting into, you know, possibly really hurting ourselves physically by not taking care of some of the things that we just need to. And so when you're thinking about the different types of stress, think about what your optimal zone is. And I say it as your optimal zone because it really is your optimal zone. Some of us can handle a lot of stress. Some of us can do really well with certain types of stress, and other types of stress we're not so good at. So just begin to kind of take this time to think about what your optimal amount of stress is. Now, don't worry, because if the answers aren't coming, if you think your body might be speaking to you, maybe you don't know, maybe your body's not speaking to you, don't worry. This is one of my favorite statements. Don't just do something, sit there. We are in a culture generally that is always about, don't just sit there, do something. But I want to turn it around and really have us sometimes stop and think about what's going on. Is my body communicating to me? How is it communicating to me? And what is it trying to say? So the only way that we can sometimes get to that is if we stop and listen, right? As opposed to just plowing through. So I would be remiss if I did not say that we do have a therapy center. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Boston Graduate School, we do have a therapy center. We are doing telehealth appointments. So we are taking new clients and patients. So certainly feel free to call. I believe Talking Helps. That was the title of the only book I've written so far. So I obviously think it's really important. And if stopping and thinking and you can't figure out what your body's telling you, if you can't figure out what's going on, and it's nothing physical or nothing that your general practitioner can help you with, your medical doctor, talk to someone and see where it can go. So our therapy center is up and, like I said, taking people now. All right, one of the other terms I said I was going to cover was Zoom Gloom. You know, I think most of us didn't even know what Zoom was before all of this started, or maybe we had a little bit of an idea what Zoom is, but Zoom Gloom is something that's new to us. And Zoom Gloom is that idea that you can be on your computer looking at a screen all day and just feel completely depressed, depleted. You don't have the energy. You're doing maybe fewer appointments, seeing fewer people than you had seen before the great pause, as I've been calling it. And you can't quite understand, why am I so tired at the end of the day? There's a lot of reasons for that. I'm going to give you a couple in the next few slides, but I think one thing that we have to accept is that Zoom is not going to be the equivalent of in-person. There's some really interesting research that's being done now, as well as some that has been done in the past about electronic conversations, about having a screen versus somebody in person. My go-to person for this is Sherry Turkle. I really like, she has a trilogy of books, but this is the third one, Alone Together. She often is speaking in the Boston area if you can catch her. But she's done some interesting studies, mostly in retirement homes and old age homes, where residents would be speaking to a computer, something that would respond to what they were saying, as well as using technology to connect with family members. And here's one thing that she found, which I think for us people who are interested in psychoanalysis, interested in the unconscious, is really interesting. When you hook up the brain and look at the way it's working, look at the activity in the brain, when you're having a Zoom meeting, the thinking part of the brain is lighting up. It's active in the same way as if you were in the room with someone. So comparing two brain images of somebody talking on Zoom and somebody talking in real life, you may not see a difference. Where there is a difference, though, is in the mid and hindbrain, in the limbic and feeling part of the brain. And what we see there is that in person, when you're picking up on nonverbal cues, when you're processing just the kind of feeling in the room, the midbrain and certainly the feeling part of the brain starts working even if you're not aware of it. And so you get a lot more activity in the feeling part of the brain that you don't get on Zoom. And so that helps me a lot when I'm thinking about, well, I've only done 3 appointments, and these are people who I've always talked with, but I still just feel exhausted. I'm used to this. I'm trained to see more than 3 people in a day. How come this has become so difficult? It turns out we're not getting that feeling feedback. We're not getting the feeling charge. We're not getting a sense of, for most of us, again, that's the real essence of relationship. That's what's driving people together. If you want to think of it as a libidinal type thing, you can. It's really libidinal and aggressive, but that's all the energy. That's what kind of keeps driving our characters and our personality. And so this book, Turkle has a couple of studies where she compares interactions on screen and interactions in person. And so recommend it if you have the time. And what can we do about it? Well, definitely disconnect when you need to. If you just can't do another Zoom meeting, cancel your Zoom meetings, take a break, give yourself a day off. It may feel weird to say, but I'm home all the time. You know, my weekdays and my weekends don't feel any different. You know, they really need to. So certainly disconnect when you need to. Feel free to take a day off if you need to. They're really important. Also schedule times between all of your virtual meetings. For those of you, and I looked at the registration list, a lot of you I know are therapists. The 10 minutes that we normally give ourselves to get a drink, go to the bathroom, do notes and whatever else we might need to do between people, you might need to give yourself more time. You know, maybe you need 15 or 20 minutes. So slightly adjusting your schedule just to give that chance for you to get out, stretch, move, a little more than you would between, let's say, a 50-minute hour with that 10 minutes before the next person comes in. Figure out if you need to do some kind of time alone, figure out if you just need to have time with a real person live, seek out an opportunity as long as you're keeping safe. And, you know, just be okay with moving around. Practice mindfulness, meditate, and do yoga. A lot of people have said, oh, you know, oh, great, I've never done yoga, meditation, or mindfulness. Well, this might be a really hard time to start, but I would encourage you to try to do something like that for yourself, some chance to kind of do something internal, focused on you, slowing down, and going back to that quote from before, you know, don't just do something, sit there type of idea. If you want my recommendation, I had probably not done a lot of yoga in the past 3 or 4 years. This gave me an opportunity to start doing yoga again. I've been doing yoga with Adriene, which is a channel on YouTube, all free, great, everything from 20-minute to 40-minute yoga classes. Highly recommend it. Great ones for beginners as well as people who are more advanced. Have compassion, you know, especially for yourself. Sometimes it's easy to be compassionate for other people, but really also know how to take care of yourself. And the last one here, I already had said, you know, you have a routine, have your weekends look different from your weekdays, but have your wake up time, your bedtime, and your meal times kind of scheduled out so that the body knows how to respond. Some other thoughts, good chairs, lighting, and headsets. So as soon as we went online and I knew I'd be teaching all of my classes, I went out and bought a ring light. I got a gaming headset. They are a little harder to get now, but not impossible. But the headset alone is so much better than earbuds. It makes it easier for people to hear. It makes you look like you're ready to land a plane. So if that's been a wish of yours, it's a good time to do that. But the ring lighting also helps keep you know, lighting a little bit more balanced. We've all been in meetings where people have backlighting. You can't see them. You only see their foreheads. If you can put a light around, sometimes it just helps you see what other people are seeing. Move around often. I think I've said that. Be at different distances from your screen. I have about 3 different places that I hold meetings, 2 of which are on a couch, one of which, like I'm at right now, is a table with a chair. But just having different spots where you can put your computer at different distances, that will really help with eye strain, because we are also, if you think about it, if you sit in one spot with the computer so many inches from your face all day, you're constantly focusing at that particular distance, and that will tire your eyes out. Another reason that you might be feeling a little bit more fatigued and tired. Those of you who, again, who are therapists, you know, we've got that thing where we look up, sometimes I do anyway, I'm looking at the ceiling, trying to think about what the person is telling me, or just trying to give myself a second to figure out what I'm going to say next. And that's another good thing to do. If you can't move your computer distance from you, look at something that's further away, look out the window. If you're concerned about people thinking you're not paying attention, just tell them that you're really thinking deeply about what they're saying. But give yourself that chance to have a little bit of break for your eyes. Okay, a couple of more general things. Take a news and media break. You know, one thing I say, I was running a program through the Boston Graduate School in a school during the marathon bombings. I remember doing home-based therapy at 9/11. And one of the things that I noticed as I just kind of consumed inordinate amounts of news was that after about 30 minutes, you've heard everything that they have to tell you, and it just starts repeating. Maybe it's a slightly different order. Maybe there's 1 or 2 new bits of information, but getting in front of the television and just listening to hours upon hours of straight news probably isn't going to be helpful to you. I've actually started saying I was only going to do 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. Then I went to just 30 minutes at night. And then I'm at a point now where I actually assume if anything major happens, somebody's going to tell me through the course of the day. So I don't actually do much news at all now. And again, I think it's just, we have to be careful about not overwhelming ourselves. I know when, again, when I was working in the school program, I can remember how many parents were saying, oh, my kid's getting really upset about hearing all these things, and what's going to are they going to have to go through metal detectors when they go back to school, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just, very easy fix for the parent, I said, don't let your kid watch so much news. So I'll say the same thing to you. Just monitor how much you're doing. Go for a walk outside. It's getting nicer. That's a little bit easier to do now. Talk to partners, friends, relatives, with no other distractions. You know, turn off your phone, shut off all the other mail so you're not getting dinged or notifications that things are coming in, and just kind of sit with somebody and go deeply. Read a relaxing book. It's on there. The irony, in the 2 months, I've only actually read 1 of the 8 books that I stacked up saying, oh, all right, good, I'm going to get through a whole bunch of books. It's still a goal of mine. I'm on the 2nd book now. I'm going to hopefully pick up the pace, or I'm not going to get through this stack of books. Kind of said this on the other one, but scheduling time for yourself, whether it's stretching, drawing, doing yoga, writing, just relaxing, you know, go ahead and do that. And that brings us to dissonance. This is probably the most difficult thing I'm throwing at you, and we can certainly talk a little bit more about it. But, you know, I've talked to people, especially people who even really are hardcore introverts. And you would think, oh, introvert, they must be doing great on these, you know, they don't have to deal with a lot of people. Even the introverts are finding that they miss being annoyed by people. And so they want to get back out just to kind of get annoyed again and remind themselves why they enjoyed being introverts to begin with. And the fancy psych term that kind of fits in here is this idea of dissonance, that it is sometimes important for us to remember that things we love, we also hate. Things we fear, we sometimes also wish for. And these things kind of sit in the unconscious. And so even though you may be saying, I'm an introvert, I'm not a huge fan of people, but I still feel like I want to get back out. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You just need to get out. And like I said, just get out to be annoyed by people. Or if you're an extrovert and you're having tons of Zoom meetings and trying to keep your, and still not feeling the same. Yeah, it's because it's not going to be the same as in-person contact. You're not going to get the people connection that you want, just purely being on Zoom. So I will post this PowerPoint. Feel free to download it. Most of it is not mine. It's stuff like I said, I've just been collecting it over time, and there are some resources here, pages where I pulled a lot of this from, including the BGSP page is good if you have access to that. Still Point Spaces is a clinic out in London that I have connections with. They have been putting out a lot of good resources, especially for counselors. But every day there's different things that are coming out. This is just where I've collected most of the ones that are in this presentation. So as I said, follow me on Twitter, and you can download this. If you don't have Twitter, why not? And if you're not following me, why not? Do follow me. But if you really don't want to do Twitter, you can drop me an email, and I'd be happy to send this to you as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen and maximize as many faces as I can here. So we have about 19 people, so that should be pretty easy for us to field any questions that people might have. If you are not interested in your voice or image being shown, you can type a question in the chat, but it's a small enough group that certainly feel free to just unmute your mic, and if you want, unmute your video. And I will tell you, I actually put real shoes on for this talk, so feel special. It's the first time I think I've worn regular shoes instead of sneakers in probably 2 months. So now the floor is yours. What would you like to know? What questions do you have?
When is this going to be over?
That's a great question. It will be over.
Please.
And
Are you sure?
I am 99.9% sure. I just don't know when. But yes, I have total faith. I do think it's going to be a new normal. I don't know that we'll go back to how we were before the Great Pause. That I am not as sure. But this current situation of most of us being in the house most of the day, that I really think will 99.9% sure end. You know, yeah. And do you know why it's different? I don't know if I said this, but since somebody had asked for psychoanalytic understanding, you know, one thing that's really different, I mentioned, and I invoked both 9/11 and the marathon. Both of those events, hugely traumatic, but they lasted a day or 2 or 3 days. With the marathon bombing, we had a shelter in place in the Boston area for a while, but it was a very, very short period of time. And then we started dealing with that time after the trauma and dealing with that, right? We went into post-trauma. With this, we don't really see any kind of enemy, quote unquote, right? We don't see this virus, it's invisible. I think we will see a lot of people wanting to have somebody to blame, you know, so politically, Democrats want to blame Republicans, Republicans want to blame Democrats, some people want to blame the Chinese. I mean, sometimes it's easier to have an enemy that we can see. But this is an enemy we can't see, and it's something that's been going on. It's this enemy has been around for a while. It's not a 1 or 2 day event that we're then going into post-trauma. This has been an ongoing kind of traumatic event for people. And so I think this is really ostensibly different than other situations.
Thank you so much for the talk. I was wondering, do you have any particular case examples that you've been thinking about and wanted to share? Perhaps one area that jumps out at me when patients are talking about loss of schedule, sessions will frequently start out with, you know, it's umpteenth day, you know, of non-Sember, or this feeling that they've lost track. Patients who are musicians and they lost all their work or etc. I was wondering if you have any cases to share or intervention strategies.
Yeah, well, I'd love to, if you have something that you'd like an intervention strategy for, certainly you can think and ask, and I'll try to do my best answering. 2 things that do jump to mind though, that I will share is, I find myself doing crazy things on sessions that I would never have done in-person sessions. I'm going to put that under the be self-compassionate. I find that I'm talking more in my sessions than I did when I was in person. I find I have a new thing that I do where I start almost every session by just saying, Happy Wednesday, or hopefully I get the right days right. I'm pretty sure I haven't lost track of the days, but yeah, I mean, I have yet to figure out why I do that. And it's funny just to see all the different ways in which people are responding to that. I think they know it's different. Normally I would not start something with a Happy Wednesday, but the other thing that I know, and this comes, I also run groups online, some groups that have been going for a while, and then we just went on to Zoom, including groups that have added new members, which is interesting. I didn't know that I'd be adding people during this, but I have. There's a certain universality to all the experience, and I have not quite had that in really in any other time in the 20 years that I've been doing therapy, meaning that a lot of people end up coming in each week telling me very similar stories. You know, there's the week where I get a lot of people who are depressed, you know, a little more depressed than they ever have been, maybe talking in a way that's not typical for them about sad feelings. And then another week where everybody seems to be talking about, I'm just about done. I'm ready to just go out. I don't care if I have to wear, you know, full PPE, you know, head to toe. I just need to get out and do it. And I'm going to go to the beach. And, you know, there's people who generally are rule followers just for one particular week. It seems like everybody is feeling the same thing. And I initially was trying to figure out, okay, is that me? Am I bringing something new into the sessions, like my you know, Happy Wednesdays? And I actually don't think it is. I think there's a kind of, I enjoy it, a universality to the experience that has been happening. And that's not to say that first 2 weeks, my experience was I saw my patients in a situation of COVID. Now I've done this enough where most of my patients are my patients with COVID as a backdrop. You know, I'm seeing their normal selves and their normal patterns and personalities and character coming out, and I can begin to tease out what's COVID. But yet there is still always that, there's been a theme. But were you thinking of something that you're hearing or that you're curious about?
Yeah, actually, as you were speaking, something came to mind in particular, which is in terms of universality and what patients are talking about, which is what you could call germophobia. It reminds me of a paper I read years ago from an Argentinian analyst who was talking about when a paranoid patient is on the couch, and when it was during the fascist regime, and would say, I think this session is being listened in on. The analyst couldn't say with sound mind that that wasn't the case. So when patients are talking about their germophobic anxieties, they have full justification to be doing so. But yet, as you were saying, you see their now that the intensity is fading, you can start to see, and maybe even themselves are questioning what is reality here. How exactly do you know when you're taking care of yourself, and when is this something to be analyzed or to be questioned?
Yeah. It's a great observation. My answer to that is, you know, I always feel my job is to analyze everything. So no matter what they bring in, I am going to try to analyze it. Often with saying, well, you know, okay, we know what this probably is, but what else could it be? You know, I try to just get them to see if they can be curious about what else, you know, could this really be?
I like that question. What else could this be? It has a very light, curious tone to it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Such a quiet group.
I have a lot of thoughts, but One thought that just came to mind when I heard you talk about cases and how we work with them and how you said you're different these days, saying Happy Wednesday. I find myself right now in a dilemma. COVID-19 is real. This is not a narrative of the patient's life. This is not some childhood trauma. This is trauma we're going through right now, both the patient and myself. And I'm being real about it. I don't deny it. And I bring myself along at times with feelings. Validating. This is really difficult. Like today, I just had a patient just before this group, and she was saying, I love being home alone when it is my choice. But now that it's being told to me, I feel imprisoned.
Yeah.
And I said, that's so accurate. I have similar feelings. So she helps me, I help her, and we validate the feelings of this time. We got to get through this time together. We got to get out at the other end.
Yeah.
And then I can go back into analyzing, listening with a third ear. Right now, I just got to be real. I got to survive this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think that's true. It's much better we survive it. Then we can do other stuff later.
Well, as you said, we can only do what we can do. We have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
This is difficult.
I think you also remind me, and it's Margaret Little, I think, who said, this work, it's really tough, and the only reason it's good for any of us to do it is because we're benefiting just as much as our patients, right?
Yes, we do.
And so, I'm learning a lot from my patients. There's a tremendous amount of resilience, I think, that is coming out. I have a patient who had, quote unquote, graduated, but was, a compulsive hand washer and germaphobe. And so, about the beginning of March, I got a call. I think I need to come back. I said, yeah, it might be a good time to come back. And so that came back, and amazingly is actually looking at getting a job. It was a recent college grad looking for work. Now just got a job. I mean, there's things that are really exciting that are happening. Still we're trying to figure out, well, what is a good amount of times to wash your hands when everybody is saying, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, for somebody who struggles with overwashing their hands, but things are going on, and it's not like everything that we worked on for years is gone. It's just kind of rethinking it a little bit. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, it comes from a different place.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had the experience with a number of patients lately who have felt re-traumatized by this from old traumas that they hadn't even acknowledged as traumatic until now. Yeah. So that's been an interesting thing to watch. People who are all of a sudden having night dreams about having been ill as a child and confined to a hospital bed and things like that. So, there's a trauma going on now, and then there's the re-stimulation of old traumas that I think many of us are also dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
May I just comment on
please,
the question of keeping a regular schedule? There can be a trap in that too. I've recently been communicating with this 86-year-old woman who has an underlying heart condition, who lives in a 16-story apartment building. And she basically never leaves her apartment. She goes and gets her mail once a week, at 2 in the morning when no one else is running around the building, gets all her groceries delivered. I don't think it's because she's afraid to die. It's because she wants to live to vote in November. And anyway, she told me that she had this really regular schedule, but she decided she had, she writes, she reads, she exercises, she does all these things. But she discovered when she had a regular schedule, a time slot for each of those activities, she felt like she was living in Groundhog Day.
Mm.
and started going a little bit nuts. So now she does the same things, but she mixes it up a little bit.
Good for her.
Yeah, you have to know what's going to work for you.
Mm.
Everything, I think everything goes a little different. There's when you're talking, I think like, well, I might at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock turn off all the dings and whistles and no more emails and no more work and sit and watch a movie. I don't watch the same movie every night, but I'm still sitting to watch watch something on the television just to kind of unwind from the day. But this is where it really you have to stop and listen to what your body is telling you, and when you need to do more, when you need to do less, when you need to be more regular, when you need to cut loose a little bit. So. Yeah, so, Ms. Psya.D.
I would like to, excuse me, to hear your thoughts about the amount of contact family members or whoever you're isolated with have with each other. And then I'm hearing a lot of conflict in the families. People have been functioning because they didn't see as much of each other in the past. You talked about self-care for individuals, but any thoughts on how to deal with this situation?
Well, my first association is some of the kids that I actually see. Some of the kids who really hated school have said some of the most amazing things like, are we going to get to go back to school? I really miss school. I want to get back. I think I really want to get back before the end of June. I think that's also code for I can't be anymore with my parents and my siblings in the house anymore. So I think all of a sudden they might have an appreciation for school, which they never had before. I also know of a number of people who have been saying, especially if you have any kind of kid that struggles with any kind of special needs or is not a traditional student, struggling with trying to get them transitioned to online learning. And a lot of people have decided summer is coming early. School is done and they're just moving into summer mode and having more fun and planning things that they would do to keep kids engaged in the summer. I think all of that is fine because I think this is a totally different time. I hope we learn to appreciate teachers and pay them more for all the work that they do now that you're homeschooling, if you've got kids and whatnot. If that, we can really start to appreciate who we pay and who we don't pay, I think, in a new way. But maybe people in here, are there any tricks to living with someone without killing them? Maybe.
Oh, you shouldn't have asked that.
All right. Any tricks on how to get rid of people safely in your house that you want to get rid of? We can flip the question the other way.
It's very difficult. I live with my husband. I have to treat him well. He takes good care of me. But I have moments where I can't stand being around him 24/7. And then I catch myself and then I try to be thankful. But what would I do without him? That would be really terrible if I was all alone. I'm constantly conflicted.
I think a lot of people have guilt about wanting to be alone when they get to spend so much time together. It's not something that people permit themselves to enjoy and say that I really need some alone time and I need to stay away from you for now.
And it is important to be able to say. We get into that dissonance thing, I think, where we get confused. We have to kind of do mental gymnastics in order to get through a day of I want to simultaneously, be with this person all the time and get as far away from them as I possibly can. But that is our nature, and that is who we are.
When I think about my own situation in this regard, my husband has always been not an easy person for me to live with. And so in the years that we've been together, we've spent lots of time trying to figure out how to relate to each other in a way that makes us both happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for people that haven't had to do that before now because of the circumstance, you know, that's the thing that's needed. The other thing that I think about is I have a couple of adolescent patients, and just how difficult it is for them to be home.
Yeah.
And I really I try to I don't know exactly what word to say, but sort of give them something to help them think about what's going to make them feel sane.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my adolescents, he discovered that it was best for us to have our sessions when he was in the car.
Yeah.
The most private place for him was to be in the car. You know, it's like, that's so just like even small things like that, something to just sort of help have them be able to find a space where they feel okay, despite having to be, you know, sort of hemmed in by their families.
And it is fascinating. I have people who want to do FaceTime and they want to be able to see me. I have people who want to FaceTime, but then they lie down on the couch and they just put the phone behind them so they don't see me anyway. But they see me coming, you know, when they start it. And then when we're done and they sit up and they say goodbye and it's face to face. I mean, that's the closest to the office setting. I think it's interesting. And I also have people who do not want to see me at all. They want to just do a straight up phone call. My theory on that is I have a number of kids. I worked for a while for social services. So I have a number of kids that have been through foster care and foster to adopt situations. And I think it's really difficult for some of them to see into my home. And so they keep it one step removed by keeping it on the phone. And I've just joined whatever they want. If they want to, even people who normally lie on the couch, but now they want to see me, I've just kind of allowed it. I've given myself a little bit more room to just say, this is an extraordinary situation. Let's just study it, see what happens. But it's fascinating. The flip side of it is being beamed into people's homes. As you say, the confidentiality is an interesting issue. The amount of exposure of homes that I'm seeing now, you know, in some ways it's exciting because I get to see things that some people have been talking about for a while. In other times, I have an 8-year-old that, you know, I have seen the entire house week after week after week, the same thing, the same tour. You know, he'd be a great salesman. He's like, here's the complete finished basement. And look, this is the addition that my parents have added on. And then we end up in the swing set in the background. He's like, I'm going to swing. Can you see me from where you're at? Watch me swing. And I just kept saying, you know, I started saying, like, do we have to do the same tour every week? Is there something I'm missing? What do you want me to see? And I actually, for this particular kid, I realized he was telling me this is all he sees all the time. And until I began to understand that he was communicating exactly how stuck he was, that really helped me. And now I can sit while he takes me to the finished basement for the, you know, 5th time in a row. But it's just, I think it's a communication of, this is all I see every single week. It's the exact same thing. So. Hey, Lisa Flegel, did you have anything you wanted to say? You were actually the first person here.
No one seems to be talking about anger, at least not in a direct way. And I'm wondering about that. And I'm also related to the anger thing, is this kind of, we're all in this together. That, you know, you were talking about, there's this universality inherent in the situation, but what about the anger of people who really don't think that they're in the same situation as other people, and people who are angry because they're not in the same situation as other people? you know. And that goes from people who are alone and aren't touching anyone this entire time to people who are not, you know, economically comfortable. They're not worried about being bored. They're worried about how to survive. So I kind of would like to hear more about that from you and other people as well.
Great. Who would like to get angry?
That sounds like a future. I think anger is there all the time. I would like to be in Germany right now, where I was born and raised, and I would be out of the woods already instead of being in this chaotic mess here. That makes me very angry.
7 days from now, I would have been leaving for Prague and London, and I was going with ACAP, with Eva Silver's group, school there, taking a trip, doing a history of Freud. You know, Freud tourism was just on the rise. When was that ever going to happen? And then coronavirus, you know, God, awful.
That's crazy.
My summer teaching engagement, which is in London, got canceled. So,
yes,
you know, I'm stuck in Massachusetts for 5 weeks
in
the summer.
I was going to go to Prague and Vienna
Yep.
with my husband and to Germany, visit relatives. Everything is canceled.
Yep.
Everything is canceled in this country. We are on hold. We're in a holding pattern. I think I need a headset. So maybe I feel better if I think I'm a pilot.
Yes.
I'm talking too much. I'm sorry. I enjoy talking to William, please.
I love the pilot remark. I just want to say that that was great. Psyche moving, just get the headset and you could really embody moving while we have to stay in one place. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Lisa, that's what I'm angry about, you know. I also feel extremely privileged in that I have a job, you know, I have a way of getting food delivered to my house. And, you know, I am appreciating the privilege that I have. You know, I was out earlier today. I had my camera and I was taking pictures of the National Guard distributing food across the street in Chelsea, Massachusetts. So, you know, it's, I see things could be a lot worse. So I hate that I'm missing my Prague, Vienna, London trip, but I appreciate that it could be worse.
I think I want to respond to the Zoom Gloom issue and kind of link that to the anger. You know, that I'm a complicated person and I'm someone who is professionally very assertive, but personally very shy. And so it's the engagement in mutual space that allows me to be most comfortable because I can shift those parts of myself. And Zoom, it's like you're the focus of a camera. You're the focus of a certain attention. And to me, it like, it requires a response. When if I was in person, like I said, it would be more of a mutual space, or there might be another person there who I could, you know, bounce off of. And so it makes it literally makes me feel put on the spot. Because I am put on a spot, light, you know. and it's exhausting. And then I feel guilty because I get so tired from it. And, you know, I'm just like, well, this isn't fair because I'm really good at what I do and I don't want to be so tired, but I'm so limited in how to be present. There's only this sort of one way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how other people feel about that. But it's frustrating. And also there's an expectation. It seems there's an expectation that one should be comfortable with it, you know, like that. It's almost like you can't, it's almost like being an alcoholic who's at a party and they have to refuse a drink and it makes them uncomfortable. It's like, you feel like you can't really say, yeah, I don't want to do a Zoom call. Yeah, I don't want to participate in that, you know, because that's the standard.
Yeah.
Now. You're supposed to want to do that because that's the way you can have contact with people. Even if that way of contact with people makes me personally uncomfortable or exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, go ahead, ask the question.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, it kind of goes also to the power imbalance in the therapeutic relationship. And I wonder if people have clients who they think they have to agree to do Zoom when it isn't necessarily what they want, where they might want to do the phone call. Like, how is that navigated and negotiated?
Mm-hmm.
Or do clients just say, yeah, let's do Zoom because they think they're supposed to? That was the end of the question.
I've been doing whatever the patient was comfortable with. Some people prefer phone calls and some people agree to Zoom. Well, one patient agreed to Zoom first and then said that she didn't like the way she looked. And that was very distracting for her. So I personally don't really explore it that much because I think it's a little bit too much at this point. Dr. Sharp said that he agrees for patients to sit up if they need to see him. And I think it's important. Some people don't have any contact all week, so maybe they really need to see their analyst. So I personally agree to whatever the patient really wants.
I was going to say earlier that it's such a good point about how being on camera puts you on the spot. I never thought about that. That was an excellent point. And it just makes me think about this thing about Zoom, like, doesn't everyone want to be a video star? Doesn't everyone want to be on TV? You know, actually, no, everyone does not, you know, but it's sort of, I feel like that's part of the underlying, like, oh, well, of course it would be Zoom. I did the same thing as Ms. Psya.D. I let my patients choose what they wanted to do and change if they felt like they needed to change.
Yeah.
But there's I don't know if it has to do with my age, but there is certainly a divide among my patients. Most of my younger patients, actually, you know what? I can't say that. I was going to say most of my younger patients went video, but now I'm thinking about that. That's not true. So, okay, cancel that. Anyway.
And if you're not sure, you can always ask, how's this going? You know, and if they say, well, what do you mean? You say, well, you know, is it working remotely? Is the platform good for you? Should we try something else? I mean, I can say, I think I hate Zoom, especially. I'm so tired of it. The only thing I do therapeutically on Zoom is I do run my group on Zoom, but all my other individual and couples work is either FaceTime or phone call. Meetings, Zoom.
Yeah.
Office hours, Zoom. But yeah.
What do you hate about it, William?
I am so tired of seeing myself and not enough
Me too.
and not enough of other people.
Oh, I know.
I can turn my video off, but I actually put a picture of myself up on it. So even when my video's off, I'm still looking at myself. I am tired of seeing myself. That is one thing that does not
Yeah.
happen when I'm in the room with someone. I don't have a lot of mirrors in my office, so I usually don't have to stare at myself. And I am too much of me, not enough of real contact with other people.
Mm. Yep, I agree.
We are.
I was going to put lipstick on tonight, and I thought, who cares?
I said I put shoes on for you all.
But thank you, William.
You're welcome. We are at the time boundary, but I just want to, if anybody hasn't said something that they want to say, here, you know, anybody who hasn't spoken that wants to say something, now's a good chance.
That's your chance.
Hey, William.
Yes.
I just wanted to go back to, I wanted to go back when we were talking, you were discussing teachers, and one of the we're in New Jersey, and right now some of our governor has begun to open some beaches and some of the boardwalks. So the teachers, in fact, we're doing a Zoom meeting tomorrow. Everybody was concerned that, well, like how are we going to get these kids back to their Chrome? Everybody received a Chromebook so that we could do the teachers can do the online teaching. But now this is like the first time the weather's actually has been nice, relatively nice, and the parents are all working from home, so they're taking off and going down to the Jersey Shore. So the main concern, one of the things that I'm sure the teachers are going to be bringing up tomorrow is the fact that, like, how are we ever going to get them back on schedule? Like, will we get them back? And I think that's like one of our biggest fears, that we're all going to need to see a therapist as well, because like you just get so worried about it. And I'm only doing it part-time. I'm not even teaching full-time right now, but I get that knot in my stomach and have the August nightmares that you get before school starts in September. Like, oh, my classroom's a mess. My March decorations are still up, but I didn't get prepared for the summer so that then I can be ready for the fall. And is there going to be a fall? So any suggestions that I could bring up to them tomorrow?
Yeah, the
Say,
best.
William said, Dr. Sharp said.
The best.
Not really.
The best line to give is, "You don't have to like it. You just have to do it." That's all. You know, I don't want to get up at 6 a.m. again. You don't have to like it. I don't want to. You don't have to even want to. You just have to. It's one of those lines. We're all going to be adjusting. I am usually a morning person, and you know, right now my early days when I have to get up at 7, and I used to get up at 5:30 and 6, so I'm going to have to adjust, but we'll just do it. You know, that's how it's gonna happen.
Right. There was a cartoon that I just saw, and it was a woman with the fuzzy bunny slippers and curlers in her hair and a big mug of coffee, and she was walking down the aisle in church, and she said, "Oops, I forgot. I thought I was still online." And she was like walking into her church with everybody properly dressed. But I guess it's like they said, the new normal. We're just going to backtrack and get ourselves prepared. So
yeah.
If anybody wants to come to the Jersey Shore, come on down.
Well, this is, we have a couple that I'm going to let that one just
Well, I really
where it is.
appreciate it. It was great listening to everybody.
You're welcome. Well, this was interesting. This is one of the first online ones that the center has done. So hopefully, you know, hopefully it was okay for you. We have a couple others coming up. So, you know, check emails as they do. Email me if you have any questions or something that comes up later. And if you want the PowerPoint, either find it on Twitter or send me an email, and I'm happy to share it with you. But thanks for sharing an hour tonight. This was interesting, like connecting with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, William.
You're welcome. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
So much. This is really
Thank you
great.
for doing this. I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome, Eva. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.